I think we're all ready. So good afternoon. My name is James Kaplanek. I'm with Section Chief for Retail and Recreational Foods with the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection. I've been doing this type of work in some capacity since 1995. I've actually been with the state for 18 years and with the Department of Agriculture since the merger for about 3 years now. I am a registered sanitarian with a degree in environmental public health from the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is online inspection reports. And what this means is the availability of the public to go online to a website and look at their inspection report. This is something that is very popular. Many states do this. We've done this in Wisconsin for many years, but only with, is this on? Can you hear, everybody can hear me? It says it's on. I don't think I need it. I got a pretty booming voice. All right, good. Wisconsin has been doing this for many years with the retail and restaurant licenses, but it was always the envision that we would expand it to all of the programs that we're going to do. And we're getting close to be able to doing that, so I thought I would go around, make sure everybody was familiar with what we're going to do again, and answer any questions that people may have. So just to tell you a little bit about the history of how we got started on this is that this is, as we talked about, it's very popular. Many states have letter grading or other things where you can go in or go in on your cell phone and look at an inspection report of a facility before you visit it. That's really the future of inspection reports. In fact, in the future, you may actually see inspectors being able to do inspections on a phone in their field and just sending them right to the web. And so that really is where technology is taking us. I want to talk about how do you access that web portal? What are the links for that? Where do you find those links so that if you want to go out there and kind of look around yourselves, you have the opportunity to do that. But in many cases, a lot of times, all you have to do is go into Google and type in Wisconsin Health Space, and it'll come up. But there's many different ways to access what's out there. In fact, there's a lot of companies that simply will just make a public records request to the department and take those inspection reports and make their own design and put those inspection reports on there, which they have a right to do because it's all public records. So everything that we're doing is already a public record. All we're just doing is making it easier for people to access. And then how it works. So just to give you a little bit of history, I continue to this day get calls, average probably at least once a month, from either a legislator or somebody from the general public asking.
Sorry.
It wasn't working, but I don't think I need it.
No, it goes right to the video.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's why, yes, sorry. I should have told you that.
Guess I got scolded.
Then you pocket it.
So it's very common for me to get a call from a legislator or the general public asking, why can't I find an inspection report for this facility online? And so this was really prevalent about 6 years ago. And, you know, it got to the point where I said, if we don't get together and develop something, the legislature is going to develop something, and now nobody's going to be happy. You aren't going to be happy. We're not going to be happy. We'll be forced to do it a certain way, and we'll have no say in the outcome of what it looks like. So 7 years ago, I got together with all the different industry groups. Got together with Waco. I got together with the lodging industry, our rec ed and educational camp, the swimming pool folks, WRA, the Restaurant Association, the Tavern League, brought all the players in together and said, guys, we got to get together and we got to put something together. And this is our opportunity to work together, to have something that we all agree with and we all support, and then we'll have a system already in place. There will be no need to have somebody tell us that we have to do it. So we decided to put that together, and we were going to test pilot it. And so we've test piloted it now. It was always our intention that we'd start with the food, and then we'd move to the rest of the programs, and so that all the programs would be posted online. Well, in between that time, we had a little merger that happened, and we went from the Department of Health Services to the Department of Agriculture, and it kind of sent us back a couple of years, why we had to try to streamline and figure things out so that we were both all on the same page. So we're getting to the point now where we're ready to make this happen. And so that's hence the presentation. So in 2010, we started forming this work group, talking with our industry partners. We talked to other states that had online web reporting and basically got ideas from them. If you had to do this again, what would you do differently? And we took the best ideas of what they said they did, and the stuff that they didn't like, we tried to avoid it when we put our system together. And then again, we piloted the restaurant program. So right now, you can go online and see the restaurant reports. They've been out there for 4 or 5 years. So all the retail and recreational facilities will now be included. The one part that we're still developing is, many of you know from a retail or restaurant inspection, that when you get your violations and you get your inspection report, they're talked about in terms of priority. Priority violations, priority foundation violations, or core violations. And when we're talking about food, a priority violation is that type of a violation which is more likely than other types of violations to cause an outbreak or injury. Priority foundation are contributors. They can aid in the development of an outbreak. And a core violation are your SOPs, your standard operating procedures, your cleaning. And so what we didn't have is, in our recreational codes, we didn't have that criticality piece built in. And so one of the things that we're doing right now is we're trying to create that uniformity in the campground code and the swimming pool code and the rec ed camp code, so that we have everyone looking at things the same way. And the same violations have the same weight regardless of who's doing the inspection. So that's the piece that we're working on right now, is that criticality piece. So the same thing that we do in the food will now go over to the rec programs, and we'll have priority violations and priority core violations and or priority foundation violations and core violations, so that when somebody looks at an inspection report, they can actually see what those ratings are for the type violation that it is. And then on that website, we explain what each of those types of violations mean, so that it provides education to the public as well. Because the people in this industry, we understand what the violations mean. We understand the importance of the type of the violation, but the general public doesn't necessarily understand that. They think a dirty floor is a big deal, where we know that's not that big of a deal. A bigger deal is your refrigerator not working. So we try to do some education to the general public at the same time, so that they have an understanding of what's important and what's not that important. So then each program will have its own designation and its own drop-down. So when you go to that website, there'll be a little tab, and if you want to look at a campground, you can look at a campground. If you want to look at a swimming pool, you can look at a swimming pool. If you want to look at the restaurant, you can go look at the restaurant.
do you enter the name of that
Yep,
facility?
yeah, we'll actually go right to the website, which is the next piece right here. So there's a couple of different ways that you can access this. One way right here is this web address. So if you're not computer savvy, you might not know what all this means. That's a web address, HTTP. You can also go to the Department of Agriculture Trade and Consumer Protection's webpage. So go to wisconsin.gov and then look for DATCAPS program, Department of Agriculture. And when you get into Department of Agriculture, at the top bar, there'll be programs and services. You click on that, then another column will drop down. You'll choose inspections. Another column will drop down, and you'll choose restaurants, and it'll take you right to the website. Or you can go to Google, and you can type in Wisconsin Health Space, all one word, health space, and it will come up as well. So there's many different ways that you can access it. So we're just going to click on it here. And again, what we're looking at right now is just the food. We haven't developed the other pieces of it yet. Once we get that criticality piece done, then we'll begin putting that on here. So right now, so this is what the website looks like. And it looks like it's probably going to be a little bit hard to see it, but you'll get the gist of what I'm talking about. So when you go in through either the department's website, or you go in through Google, or you go in through that web address that I gave you, it's going to come up and it's going to look something like this. And up in the corner over here, you're going to have a home button. You're going to have departments. You're going to have a map section. And that map section will allow you to choose on the state by county. Now, if you're in a state-inspected facility, all the state facilities are all together, but you just click on the state and type in the name. If you're in an agent county, each agent maintains their own database. So when you click on that agent county, it takes you right to their website, and it shows all the facilities in their website. And so what will happen is you can either go by department. So if you know the name of the health department, if you're a tourist, you don't know the name of the health department. You just might know the county that you're in or the highway that you're on. And then that map will help figure out where you are so that you can figure out if you're interested in looking something up. What we have in here, which you really can't see, but this is a description. Tells a little bit about what we do as a department, how many facilities that we have in the state of Wisconsin, and it just gives a brief description of what our program is and what we're responsible for. The real meat and potatoes is going to come in when you actually click in and actually go to a facility. So here, when I talked about, here's all the departments. All the counties are listed, or the cities that have health departments. So you have Appleton, Adams County, Ashland, Buffalo, Central Racine. Those are all the different counties or cities that are agents of the department for inspections. And all you have to do is click on one of those. So for example, let's find, we're in Portage County. So let's type in Portage. And what that's going to do is it's going to take me to the Portage County website. And what's going to happen is Portage County will have their little saying here, which talks about their program and what they do and what's important to them in Portage County. And a lot of times the agents just copy what the state has so that there's some uniformity, but they have the option to be a little bit creative and talk about their own health department if they want. So what you can do is you can either click View Facilities, And it'll take you to just a listing of all the facilities in that jurisdiction. Or you can actually start to type it in. And you don't have to know how to spell it right. You just have to get a few of the letters right, and then it will come up. But then what'll happen is, right here it says inspections. So in the future, what'll happen is when you click on that, a little tab will drop down, and it'll say food, camping, recreational, swimming pools, and you'll be able to choose the tab that you want to look at. And so the same thing may come up, but it may say campgrounds, view facilities. But right now, it's just food. And so, for example, let's just, what's close here? Applebee's? Has anybody ate in Applebee's?
Must be okay, you don't have X's in your eyes.
So there's Applebee's Neighborhood Grill, pops up. All you'd have to do is click on it. Maybe. All right, come on. Oh, it's trying to. It's trying to load. There it is. So what's going to happen, and this is unfortunate that this is not clear, but I'll try to explain it to you. So what you have listed here is all the facility detail information. So what's the name of the facility? Where is it located? When was the last time that they had an inspection? And what type of facilities that it is. And then what we actually added was a little tab down here that says Google Maps. So if they actually want to find out how to get to your facility, they can click on Google Maps and it'll give them directions on how to find out where you're located. So just another tool to help the consumer, and actually industry was like, well, can you give them directions on how? Yeah, why not? Why not? And so we did that. And then over here, what you have is the inspection history. And the only thing that we included in the inspections are the pre-inspections when you first open, a routine inspection, and a re-inspection. We chose not to take complaints because half the time we get a complaint and we find out it's not valid. Somebody's angry, they didn't get the service they wanted, so I'm going to fix you, and they make a complaint. But we decided not to include complaints because we really just wanted to focus on the inspection. And then we also decided not to include comments. Every inspection report has a comment section. And that was one of the advice that we had gotten from the other states, was they said, don't put the comment section on there, because we had some inspectors that wrote good job in the comments section, and now you had operators calling up saying, well, why didn't my inspector write good job on my inspection report? And so every inspector is a little bit different in how they do things. And so I was like, you know what, it's not really relevant to the inspection. What we're really trying to do is just give a snapshot to the public of what that facility was like on that particular day that we did the inspection. So we don't include complaints, we don't include the comments. And the other thing that we did is that the inspections have a history. So you only have 3 years worth of data on there, and then the inspection just falls off. So you should have a rolling 3 years. Now you might have 10 inspections in that 3 years based on if you've got some issues going on. But that history is going to be there for 3 years, but then it'll fall off so that you have this rolling 3-year period. We also decided to put a provision in there because sometimes violations get written and there's a discussion because you don't think it was a violation. Yes, I had this, I showed it to you, it wasn't a violation, it showed up on my inspection report. And so we put a 7-day, basically a 7-day retention period from when the inspection report is completed to the time it actually gets posted. So you have 7 days in which to contact that supervisor, have a discussion, get the inspection report corrected before it actually goes on the web. Now, if you did have violations, unfortunately, they're going to stay on there. Even if you correct them, they're going to stay on there. But that's what, if you have a reinspection, it's also going to show that you corrected those violations. And so, yes?
Two questions. One is 3 years worth of data you have on restaurants. So when this comes up for campgrounds, will you go back to previous inspections, or will it just be 1 year and then they'll bill?
Right. I think the way that it's set up is it's 3 years worth of inspections.
Okay.
So, because some of our facilities don't get a yearly inspection, and so it might be 3 inspections.
Okay. Second question is, lots of times they don't come back and re-inspect. I mean, I'm thinking, for example, they were in and they said, hey, you know what? One of your spigots is at 14 inches. It needs to be
Yep.
18 inches.
If they don't have to come back for a reinspection, that's a good thing. It means that just because you have violations doesn't mean they're going to come back and do a reinspection. A reinspection is only going to occur if you have violations that are significant in nature, that they pose a risk to the public. And in those cases, they're going to come back and they're going to do a reinspection, and most likely, they're going to charge you a fee for that reinspection. So if they just write violations and they're core violations, or you do have a critical violation, but you correct it immediately while the inspector is still there, there may be no need for them to come back and do a reinspection. And typically what that means is that these things that we discussed and talked about on the inspection report, they all need to be corrected by the time I come back for my next inspection.
But they'll sit there for a year.
Right. Well, they're always going to be there no matter what, because they're not coming back to do a reinspection. If they're doing a reinspection, it's because there were significant issues there that they had to come back for. And again, when they come back, they're not going to look at everything on that inspection report. They're focusing on those major things that they wrote that they had to come back for. Go ahead.
This wouldn't include places that want to have a temporary camping set up for like a week or a couple weeks or something like that at all?
No, temporaries aren't on here. These are your permanent facilities. Yep.
So
Annual temporary.
sorry, I think you presented this once before I asked you this question, but I'm going to ask you again. So again, I think this is great, and you're going to do it, so you're really gonna work. But your inspectors aren't consistent. You know, every year when they come in, there seems to be something new that's come up. You know, you've been around for 30 years, and yet this time they come in and identify something that was never an issue before.
Yep.
So, you know, it doesn't really matter what you try and do to make sure you're completely up to speed. It's
Right.
almost always something
Right.
that's found.
There's always going
It's
to.
going to sit out there for a year.
Yep.
Again, maybe, I mean, I've never had a major one, so I guess it's not a big deal, but
Right.
there's got to be something there that says there's something, that there was a problem here at this campground.
And that's part of having that criticality piece, because that is going to actually show what type of violation it is. And the public's going to be able to understand that a priority violation, ooh, they had to go back for that. If it's a core violation, that's just a SOP violation. It doesn't require follow-up. And that's what it's going to say on there. Now, when you talk about the consistency thing, you're dealing with the human element. We're not robots. So sometimes you get an inspector that's going to come out and notice something that hasn't been noticed because they just went through a training and were said, hey, are you looking at this? Because this is something you're supposed to be looking at. It might not have been right all along. Doesn't mean that it was okay for 10 years and now all of a sudden now it's a violation. It was probably a violation for 10 years. It's just the inspector didn't have the training to understand it or acknowledge it.
Are you finding that people care to see if campgrounds have violations?
I think that, there's
What's the point?
there's an interest to it. And so you're getting people that are calling.
Is it the government that, who's sharing interest? Are people are really calling you and saying, hey,
Why?
I really care
Right.
if
I-
Applebee's Haddock.
They all want to know what their place that they like to go to is doing. And so, will the campground one get evaluated that much or looked at that much? I don't know. Will the swimming pool one get looked at? I don't know. We have a lot of success rate and a lot of views on the food facilities, and I continue to get calls saying, well, why can't I see the tourist rooming house on there? Why can't I see the hotel that I stayed at? Why can't I see the campground on there? And so the whole idea all along was for all the programs on there, not just the food programs. So that's kind of where we're at. All of these right now, are anybody can call and get a copy of an inspection report. It's not a secret document. It's all public record. And so all we're doing is just making the public record more accessible. Rather than taking those open record requests over the phone, the public can go and find the information themselves.
Will a campground that has a restaurant or serves food, whatever, will it all be listed under their campground? Or
No.
will the restaurant be in the restaurant
Yep.
section? Oh, it will be.
Yep. And so if you have food facilities now, your inspection report's probably already in here. You can go and look them up for yourselves. All you have to do is go to this site right now, and if you have food facilities, you can actually go and look at your inspection report.
So include like, what is it, not a restaurant, but small food or prepared food or whatever that license is.
Prepackaged?
Prepackaged, yeah.
Yeah, prepackaged may not be on there, or a retail store may not be on here, but if you have a restaurant, it's definitely probably on here. And so this is kind of the future of where we're moving to actually satisfy the number of requests that come into the department for open records. Because there are companies out there right now that are taking this information anyway. They just ask for an open record, a dump of all the information that you have, and they're taking that now and actually just putting it online. There's a lot of companies out there that make inspection reports available online, and that's all they're doing is going right to the health department and getting those inspections. And so we wanted to take that incentive away from them as a money-making process and say, this shouldn't cost anybody anything. This is just public knowledge. This is public records.
And with somebody doing that on their own,
They're doing it now,
they
yeah.
wouldn't have to include all of the restaurants
They could-
if they didn't want to.
they
If
could-
they wanted to
yep.
make somebody look bad or good, they could do that.
They could set it up however they wanted to. And so we just wanted to say, this is a state site. This is the actual...
Are you like promoting?
Yeah, we're not advertising it. You know, it's out there to the associations and stuff, and it's out there if somebody searches for it. But we don't have any big advertisements on Google or anything like that. And so then you can actually go right into, if you click on one of these, you can actually go right in to the inspection report. And what's going to happen is you're going to have 3 headings across the top here. One is going to be the main view, which tells you where's the facility located, that same information from the other screen. Then you actually click over here, and it's going to give you the violations. And if you click the 3rd tab, it's all the temperatures and those type of things that they took at the facility. So when you look at these are all color-coded. So the yellow are going to be priority violations. You're going to have blue ones, which are priority foundation, and green ones, which are core. So not only do we kind of color coordinate them for the general public, but then we explain in that previous document on that main page, explain what those mean to the consumer. And then you can actually just go and look, and you can kind of see this first one right here. They had a priority violation, but it was immediately corrected during the inspection, and that's noted right on there. So they had 4 priority violations, and 3 of them were immediately corrected on site. Could have been a date marking issue, could have been something that wasn't at proper temperature. They either pulled it, discarded it, put a label on it, and the inspector marked it corrected on site. So as long as those are getting corrected on site, it's going to automatically be reflected. But if I have to come back because your dish machine's not working, that's going to show up on there, and it's going to show up that I did a re-inspection, and that will stay on there until that comes off after the 3rd inspection.
It comes off after the third inspection or after 3 years?
After, now you got me doubting whether it's 3 years or 3 inspections. I think we based it on time.
On your slide, it says 3 years worth of data.
3 years, I thought it was time, yep. So again, we talked about comments are not included, signatures are not included. So we don't want people scamming people's signatures off the internet. So your signature is not on there, our inspector's signatures aren't on there, the person's name is not anywhere on that document. 3 years worth of data, it only includes pre-inspections, routine inspections, and re-inspections. And somebody asked if could we include follow-up inspections. And that would be a case where you had an inspector and you wanted him to come back as a follow-up and make sure that those things are corrected. We could include follow-up inspections on there as well. But a lot of times that's a workload issue as well. And then we talked about not posting the report for 7 days after the inspection to allow for corrections if any errors are found. You had a question?
I do. What kind of stuff is going to be listed on the campground?
What kind of what?
What kind of information will be listed once the campground's connected? Like if you clicked on our campground?
On the Google? You mean the Google?
Like in the future, you said there's going to be restaurants, campgrounds.
Oh, what'll happen is
What will be reported for, what kind of information will they get on our campgrounds?
just the location and the name of the campground and the Google Maps on how to get to it.
And the whole inspection report.
And the inspection report, exactly. So, right. The inspection report's not going to look any different than what you see for food. It's going to have a inspection or a pre-inspection or a routine inspection, and then you're going to click on that, and it's going to come up, and it's just going to show the same violations that you see now on your inspection report. It's just going to be online instead of on that report you get printed by the inspector. And the only thing that we're going to do differently is we're coordinating the criticality piece to provide information on what type of violation is it. Is it a priority violation? Is it a priority foundation violation? Or is it just a core violation? There isn't really that many, when you talk about campgrounds and you talk about rec ed camps, the things that we're interested in there is water, wastewater. Those are the big issues that are going to cause us to come back to your facility unless we have just year after year of where you've been cited and you've done nothing to correct it. And I come the next year and the same problem exists and you've done nothing to correct it. And I come the third year and the same problem. That'll be an automatic reinspection. And then they will charge a fee for that. And then they'll be coming back to ensure that you make those corrections. So it's kind of like the 3 strikes and you're out type of thing. Yeah.
The inspections right now can be viewed
There-
online somewhere?
Any restaurants? We haven't finished that yet. We're doing that
I
criticality.
mean, before your little program, is there anywhere else anyone else can see inspection?
We haven't allowed anyone else to post any of our agents to post
They'd
You mean
have to do
any-
all the records
I'm
requests.
just-
right.
I'm
Yeah,
just
all they have to
curious.
do is ask for it and they can get it.
And I'm kind of young at this, but I'm just kind of curious on like why you want something like that to be seen to the general public.
It's a public record.
It is a public record, but
Right.
now you're making it so much more easier, and
Right.
I haven't heard you explain yet why you're making it easier for people to see.
The-
And this is just a serious
And-
question, I'm not trying to,
Right.
I just
The
don't.
the main reason is the continued requests that we get to be able to view the inspection reports online. And so when we originally set this up, this group of industry people set this program up as, in the future, this is what it was going to look like. We'll start right now with the food, but then we're going to move on to the rest of the
Because
program
food I can see,
areas.
'cause you got an A or a B outside and it's sitting on your window, and people wanna know if, well, there's not cockroaches crawling through your food, but I was just curious
Well,
on why,
right.
why campground stuff.
Well, they
It's-
might want to know, customer might want to know if you have problems with your pool. They're constant violations with the.
People want to know if you got a history of bed bugs in your hotel. I mean, people want to be able to look up information to see that they feel safe in the places that they're recreating at, that they have the ability to look. And our whole intent when we developed this was for us to get ahead of the game and for us to have control over what we develop and put out there, rather than somebody going to their legislator and the legislator saying, hey, I'm going to pass this, we're going to require you to do this. And now none of us have any control over it. We have to do exactly the way that it's written in statute, and we have no control over it. And the whole idea behind this was for us to get ahead of the game. Let's put something together that we can control and that we've worked on as a group before we're told how we're going to do
If the
it.
legislature would have told you, you wouldn't have been able to possibly be able to prioritize and say, this
Right.
is the level of violation here, so the customers can see it.
Right.
So I think it's a good thing you got out
Yeah,
of it.
it was an opportunity for us as an industry group and regulatory to work together, to put together something that we would have, that we put together, so we wouldn't get to the point where we were being told how we had to do it.
That 7-day delay, I think that's excellent.
Yep.
Like you said, it gives a chance for if a mistake was made or whatever, like, so you can have the discussion.
Yep.
And you say, okay, well, I guess that really, whatever. But
Yep.
at least there's a little bit, because that was a concern early on when, I think when this was first talked about.
Yep.
Is that all of a sudden you get a new inspector, or all of a sudden somebody writes up a violation, and then they call the supervisor, or whatever, and they say, well, you know, we're gonna handle this a little different.
Right.
You know, or whatever, but at least you have that opportunity.
Yep, and that's why we built that in.
Oh, it's not.
What's-
Campground, someday, you're gonna be able to post that on that website immediately. You know, it's gonna get to that technology, then that 7-day window is gone, because it's gone.
Well, no, well, it's how you set it up. It's how the program is developed. So our program is set up so that there's a 7-day window. So that won't actually get posted onto the website for 7 days. Now, if you, when?
To go live, if you will.
It's probably going to be 3-4 months yet before we get the criticality piece built in.
Segments come in for recreation.
Yeah, everything will come in at the same time.
And can you give us an example of what is under the recreation category?
So what you'll have is you'll have a lodging tab that you'll be able to choose, and that will include all of your hotels, tourist rooming houses, bed and breakfast facilities. You'll have a camp tab, which will include your campgrounds and your recreational educational camps. So like your summer camps and like the Lions Camp and those type of things, those will all be included under a camp tab. And then you'll actually have a water swimming tab, which will include like your water recreational facilities. So those are all the programs that we inspect. And then you'll have under the food, it'll be all the food. All the retail, all the restaurant, everything will be included together.
A campground that has cabins or trailers that they rent out, will that still be under the campground?
Nope.
Or will that be with lodging?
If they have a separate license, it'll be under that license category, which will be lodging.
So your full would be in like a full category.
Yep. Yep. There's just no way to, not now, not to say that we won't be able to do that in the future, but Health Space is the inspection program that we use, and they are firm believers in making information available, and they actually host this and post this for free. They don't charge us a dime for development. They developed it, they put it out there for us for free because they feel that it's important. So it doesn't cost you anything, it doesn't increase your license fees, doesn't increase our cost. We don't have to pay for it. They consider it a public service. And so that's, if it would have cost a bunch of money, we probably wouldn't be doing this either, just because no matter how well it was, if there were a bunch of dollars attached to it, we just wouldn't be able to do it.
I think to answer her question, she asked, is it possible someday this could go up that the 7-day thing would be gone? Well, that's not there now for if someone wants to access it now, correct?
Right.
They can already do that online.
Yeah, but it's such a lengthy process.
Oh, yeah,
Who's
it's
doing it?
open
I
records
mean,
type thing, yeah,
Right,
I suppose.
right.
You don't have guests.
Yeah, right now, you got 10 days to reply. So instead of 7 days, it's 10 days to reply to an open records request. So right now, if somebody wanted that inspection report, we as a department have 10 days to get that information back to that individual.
Jim, do you know, part of the reason you said you're doing this is because you routinely, or people are routinely calling and asking. It doesn't sound like it's a lot of people, but some people are. Do you find it tends to be where there's a problem? You stayed at a hotel, you went to a restaurant, there was a problem, and then they contact you?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think what we tried to, when we talked about this as a group, is it's a way to combat the negative publicity that people get. Because sometimes you have a person that stayed at your campground, they, for whatever reason, they had a bad experience and they're going to get back in you. So they go online and they say, I got bed bugs at your facility. Or they stayed at a hotel and it was a box elder bug and they don't know any difference. But they blasted all over the internet that I got bed bugs at your facility. Well, you and I have no control over what people put on a website, but you can always direct those people to look at your inspection report because this is what the state did or this is what my county inspector did, and you have a truthful documentation of your facility.
I think it's gonna go both ways though. I think it's gonna go the other way, for sure. Because now, if someone says that you have bed bugs, they're not going and getting the form and filling it out at the courthouse and all that other stuff. Now they can jump on there, and if you did have bed bugs, now they're attaching that file right to your reviews, making you look like a piece of crap when you might have fixed the bed bugs 2 days later. But now bed bugs is out there in that form for everyone to see, and I think that's just my
There's
opinion.
potential
There's,
for that.
you can
Yeah.
think positive, but there's also, I
Yep.
think, negatives on it too, so.
Yeah, if you have bed bugs, it's going to be a reinspection, and that reinspection is going to show that it was corrected. We certainly,
okay.
yeah, if you had bed bugs, it wouldn't be something that we say, hey, we'll see you next year, make sure you clean that up. You'll be back and you'll have documentation that, yes, it was corrected, and then that will be on there as well. So,
It kind of reminds me, it's kind of like an annual physical inspection without HIPAA.
right. Yeah, we're not going to put any health information on there, so you don't have to worry about that. Huh?
It's under the health.
The health department's doing it, but there's no medical information on there.
I know, but it's an
Yeah.
annual physical inspection.
Easy as him being
So they're still gonna sit down with you at your place of business and go.
Oh, absolutely.
Like they always have.
Yep, nothing is going to change except that an interested person has the ability to access the inspection report online if they want to. So like I said, we've been testing this with the retail facilities for, about 7 years now. I can count on one hand the number of phone calls that I've gotten from somebody that had questions or a negative comment yeah. Just, it's been a very positive response, and like I said, less than 5 times that I've even received a call in 10 years.
And that's how many restaurants in the state?
60,000 food facilities.
Wow.
So,
Now, I think you mentioned before, I heard this on the radio a little while back. Is there something now that a restaurant gets a number or a letter?
that's in Milwaukee.
Oh, that's just Milwaukee?
That's in Milwaukee
Who does
is,
that?
Milwaukee is piloting a grading program.
In other
And-
states, it's different too.
In other states, it's very controversial.
Who does it? Who does
Some-
the grading?
The
Oh,
inspectors.
they do, okay.
Yeah. And so it's very controversial. You can find 50 studies that say grading doesn't work. You can find another 50 studies that show grading is the cure to all ails. But it puts a lot of pressure on an inspector because, of course, everyone wants an A. Nobody wants to get less than an A. If everybody has an A, then how effective is it? How informed are you actually as a consumer if everybody gets an A? And so
Outcome-based.
there's got to be a better way, and I think that's what Milwaukee is doing this piloting. They're going to look at some statistics to see, does it actually impact and make the restaurants do a better job by having a grading on there. And they're going to do some statistical analysis on that. And if they find that it doesn't work, they probably won't be dumping any money into it either. So it's an opportunity for us as a state to get an opportunity to see how something like this would work and to have some input into
Is
it.
the state backing that study, or is Milwaukee on their own with that?
Well, Milwaukee's on their own doing it, but it's actually part of our new rule development where we actually put in there that you can't do grading unless you have an approved program. And so Milwaukee had started this as we were going through the rulemaking process. So in an agreement with the city of Milwaukee, we're allowing them to continue to do this as part of a pilot program. But if we have a successful pilot program, we'll have a program that we will put out there that the department will approve, that if any other county would like to have a grading program, here's what you can use. And so what we want is consistency. What we don't want is, you know, in your county they're doing 3 smiley faces, and in your county they're doing red, white, and blue, and this county's doing. We want consistency across the state, exactly, and that's what industry wants. They want consistency.
One of those same things, if you get a C, right, or they put it on the window, from a perspective of, oh crap, I want that C to be an A, so I need to change my whole facility. But if that C's on the window, you're telling your customers, and of course you shouldn't have let it get to that point, right? But when you put it on the window, when people walk by, they see that C as a health grade, they initially start to think, I ain't walking in there, they're getting a C. You know, that kind of, you feel like you're hurting the business by putting it in the window.
That's why I don't believe in grading. But
If it's just between us that we got a C, then I want to fix it and make it an A without
Right.
the customers knowing. But again, it shouldn't have got that.
my feeling is you don't need a grade. The consumer is smart enough to look at an inspection report and make their own decision. They don't need me to give them a grade to tell them how they should look at something. And so if it was me and it was my favorite restaurant, I don't care if it was an A or a C. I'm going to probably eat there anyway.
Yeah, if you enjoy it with it.
Right. And so it's what does the score represent? As an informed consumer, that's what I want to know. I didn't want to know what the inspector's opinion was. I want to know what were the violations. Because I can make the determination for myself. Well, I don't think that that's critical.
Yeah, you see a C, but you're like, what did that,
Ex-
was it the floor? Was there a
Well,
cockroach?
yeah, it could be that they're in a really old building, and there's a lot of repair issues that need nothing to do with food safety, but that it's a really old building and it brings their score down. Well, to me, that has nothing to do with food safety. I'm still going to eat there. Now, if I go into it could be a brand new place, but if I see that they have 6 of their 8 coolers are all at 50 degrees, I'm probably not eating there. So but I make that choice. The inspector doesn't make that for me by giving me a grade. I get the opportunity to make that decision for myself as a consumer. And that's really partly behind this as well, is that the consumer can make the decision what they want to do.
Society is getting to the point where everything has to be decided for them. If you're not smart enough, you're going to do this thing. That's where it's going. They're doing all this stuff, you're helping that group right along.
Yeah, we're better off to educate the public rather than the other way around. Yep. Well, thank you, everyone.